Welcome back to She Talks Money, the show where we help you create wealth with clarity, confidence, and intention. Today, we're diving into a topic that every parent, educator, and community builder needs to hear: how to raise financially empowered kids and teens. Because let's be honest, so many of us didn't grow up with the money tools we needed, but we can change that for the next generation. And to help us do that, I'm joined by Samantha Bird, a financial literacy specialist and founder of Early Bird Education. She is on a mission to make money conversations simple, age-appropriate, and empowering for families. Her work has been featured in MarketWatch and Fox Business, and her resources are used by families and educators across the country. We're talking about where to start, what to say, and how to make financial literacy a core part of your parenting and legacy. Whether you're raising toddlers or teens, this conversation is packed with practical tips and powerful insights. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. I have to admit, I've been a little bit binge watching your Instagram videos and feeling, I'm not going to lie, like a little bit behind. I have a daughter about to turn 16, and I'm like, oh, there's some things that we need to teach her yet before she leaves the house. So I'm so glad that I came across your page, and I'm so glad that we get to share this with an audience, because I know I'm not alone when I feel that way. So whether you've got littles
Yeah.
or teens, we're gonna pull as many nuggets out of you as possible today. So,
Yes.
but to start out, I know that you mentioned in one of your videos, I call it our money story, right? Like, so many of us, how we think and how we deal with money has to do with how we were raised and the kind of the story that we were told and heard about it as we were growing up. So I'm just curious, what inspired you to focus on financial literacy specifically for like children's and teens?
Yeah. So my story is very similar to a lot of families in that I didn't learn much about financial education growing up. I knew next to nothing about money growing up. And so when my husband and we entered adulthood, we started with really poor money habits. So we found ourselves $40,000 in credit card debt. We made every mistake we possibly could make when it came to money. And it got really bad to the point where we had 3 little babies at the time. And I just remember looking at him and I'm like, this has to change. We have to do something and we have to do something quick because I'm,
Mm-hmm.
breaking down in the grocery store parking lot over money, not knowing how we're going to afford groceries. So it's just bad. And so we we sat down, we put a plan together, and within 2 years paid off all of our debt, started
Wow.
investing, built an emergency fund. I mean, like, we really buckled down, we really hustled for it. Um, and at the end of that, I just remember looking at my kids and thinking, if I don't do something, this cycle is just gonna continue. If I don't teach them, if I
Mm-hmm.
don't help them, this cycle is just gonna keep going on, and they're gonna struggle the same way I did. And so I took everything I had learned from the library. I was reading literally every book that I possibly could on money. I took a financial coaching course. I did all sorts of stuff. And then I started distilling that down into teaching my kids. And that's where I started sharing my journey. And other families really latched onto it as well. So it's been
I l
incredible.
I love that. I love that, I love that. And usually it takes something we go through, a difficult thing, right, to then
Mhm.
spin it and really create something amazing, so I love that story. So what age do you recommend parents begin teaching kids about money, and what should those early conversations look like?
Yeah. So I always recommend waiting until you look for a couple things. When they're able to read, obviously do basic addition and subtraction, but then I really like to wait until they understand cause and effect because it's fairly obvious when if I do X, Z happens, right? They
Mhm.
need that when it comes to money. But then also have parents look for if kids are asking questions about money, then
Yeah.
that's a really good sign that they're ready to learn about it. They're ready to have those very basic beginning conversations. And even if it's just, play money, letting them pay at the grocery store, talking about,
Mhm.
okay, I'm choosing this over this because this is more cost effective or whatever. And then building on that. starting to, if it's you choose, give an allowance and starting to teach them about budgeting and little pieces
Mhm.
here and there.
I love that. And so my mother-in-law was an early childhood educator, and she retired when we had kids, and I would show up and my kids she would have stations set up, like different education
Oh my
stations.
gosh.
And but one of the most played with and fun toys of all the years, my kids went there from the time they were little until even when they were a little bigger, was the play cash register. The play
Oh,
cash
yeah.
register and the play money, and then, like, she had the little kitchen, and they would play store or McDonald's,
Mhm.
and that was, like, their
Yes.
favorite games was, where they got to have, money and pay for things,
Yeah.
so such a
Oh,
great
absolutely. They
education
love it.
in all of that. So
Yeah.
cool. So, what are some fun or just like that, what are some fun or practical ways parents can introduce money concepts at home?
Yeah. So obviously, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I love if you can make talking about money a game. If you can
Mhm.
introduce small challenges, I have a ton of little tiny challenges for even basic things. Like my kids, just recently, we did a little challenge where and I posted about it on Instagram, where it was a little mini shopping spree in our house. And it was to help them understand the value of a dollar because it is hard to understand
Mhm.
when you're little. They think money is just endless and we go to the store and mom and dad buy the toys. Um, but to say we had them sit down and we were like, all right, you have 2 minutes and you need to find one thing in our house that costs $10 and whoever's closest to $10 gets to pick the movie on movie night. Like it's just little simple stuff
Mhm.
like that where it's fun, it's kind of a game, it's quick, but then it helps them understand, oh, my one of my sons picked something up that was like $25. And it helps them start to put that in their mind that, oh, this measly dollar that I do a chore for, it holds value.
Absolutely. I saw that video just the other day, and I loved that. I love that
They're so
concept
cute.
because it does get them thinking about what's something worth, right? When we're just paying for it
Mhm.
for them, they don't really realize, "Oh, this Starbucks," in my world, I have teenagers, so
Yeah, yeah,
what
right.
else could I really get for this $9 cup of, like, juice, you know?
Right, right. Yeah.
So, can you walk us through a few of your most popular resources or lessons from early bird education?
Yeah, absolutely. So the probably most popular right now is our Kids Money Workbook. In it, we dive into the 6 core financial skills that I like to call them. So, spending, saving, giving, investing, expenses, and, like, budgeting. And in the workbook, it helps kinda teach kids how in a playful, kind of fun way, how to budget, how to make smart spending choices. Really simple and really hands-on, but what I'm most excited about is right now, I'm updating Early Bird Education, which is a gamified digital program for kids where they can go on and it's an adventure-based game and they get to learn financial skills in a very fun way. So that's almost done. That'll be launching in just a couple weeks. So super excited about that.
That's awesome. If you can make Money Meets Fortnite, my son would be all
Yes.
he would be all in for sure. I
Right.
love that you're
Right.
turning it into a game because I think it's so much more attention grabbing for the kids,
Mhm.
especially now, to
Yeah.
to really get into it and think it's fun. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. And I love that we're teaching budgeting. I think is so important to teach at a young age because, I do mortgages for a living. I help people finance homes and I can't tell you how many adults don't budget or don't even
Yes.
understand how much money is really going in and out. So to teach
Mhm.
kids from a very early age, it's responsible to watch that and pay attention to
Mhm.
it. I mean, they're going to be so much further ahead as
Yeah.
adults than most other people. So that's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Um, so we talked a little bit about a game. How do parents recommend or how do you recommend parents using technology? So apps, games, digital tools to help make kids learning money more engaging. I think there's also other tools like do you recommend things like I got my kids for example green light cards.
Mhm.
It backfired for a little bit because I was receiving, "Mom, can you add money? Can you add money?
Yeah.
Can you add money?" And I was like, "Time out. Time out. We need to like reset on how this whole
Right.
program works." And
Right.
it was a great education opportunity though for, I don't just add money to the card when you need it. Like you have to
Right.
earn that money first because
Right.
they would be out with their friends or something. Can you add money? I'll clean the basement. And
Right.
I'm like, I could, but then I'm going to charge you interest because you're actually
Right.
borrowing money then. And that's a loan. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so they quickly
Right.
learned, oh, I have to do my chores first and
Right.
get my money. So are there any other tools like that, cards, things like that that you think help, especially maybe middle age or, middle school or teens to
Yeah, yeah,
understand
so
responsibility of money?
yeah, so I love green light. Our kids are, younger, so we're still in the
Mhm.
cash age because I
Sure.
like them learning with tangible money, but
Yes.
love green light, go Henry. And then I also love Early Bird, which is it's funny, it's the same name, but totally different company.
I wondered.
They are yeah, they're an investing app, and what I love about them is that it is really yeah, it's super simple, super user friendly, and I have accounts for all 3 of my kids on Early Bird, and what I love about it is that my kids can, they get their allowance and they can put a few dollars each week into their investing account, and then once a month, we just check on it, and they get to see how their investments grow or how they change, and we can have that conversation about how wealth can build over time. I really love them. They are super user friendly.
That's awesome. So getting into a little bit of the teen ages, why do you think it's so important for teens to understand like credit, debt, and interest before they leave home? And I see this because I see credit reports for a living,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I love for you
Yeah.
to answer what you see.
Yeah. So it is really important. I think most of us were taught, I mean, maybe not most of us, but a lot of us were taught just to avoid debt at all costs. And that
Mhm.
is excellent advice, but maybe not the most realistic advice. And
Mhm.
so I think it's really important for families to start having these conversations with their kids, actually explaining what debt is and something simple, how interest works, how if you pay your minimum payment on something, it's not going to pay it off because I have
Right.
talked to so many 18, 19, 21 year olds who think that paying their minimum payment on their credit card bill is going to make it go, that it's fine. And I'm like, oh no. But yeah, having these conversations about what debt actually is so that they have a healthy respect for it, not just a complete avoidance.
Yeah, that's great. We're having those conversations. Like I said, my daughter is just about turning 16. So we've talked about a car and a car
Mhm.
loan and different interest rates. And she got to
Right.
see like my credit being pulled and the impact of really good credit versus if you didn't have as good
Yeah.
a credit, what the difference in interest rate, how that impacts something even like a credit card or especially like a car loan.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's just really good lessons for it should be taught in school, right? I've been saying this for
Yeah.
years, like, why out of all respect for teachers and what they learn, it's like my kids come home with, when am I ever gonna use this algebra?" And
Right.
to their point, you might not, but if there was a finance class, I mean, gosh,
Yes.
they would learn so much and actually use
Yeah.
that in real life.
Right.
So, we're
Right.
lucky to have people like you. What do you see as one mistake parents make when it comes to preparing teens for financial adulthood, and how can they fix it?
So I think it has less to do with specific habits and has more to do with the frame of mind when talking to teens. So I think just as a parent in general, it's really easy to want your kids to make the right choices. And that sometimes we can be really strict on what. So instead of forcing them to make the right choices, teaching them how to make choices. How do
Yes.
we pause, take a second, weigh all of the options, make those decisions? Because the part of the brain that's meant for long term planning isn't really developed yet, even as a teen.
Mhm.
And so we have the opportunity to teach them how to make their own choices, not giving them the choices for them. That makes sense.
I think that's great, and we've implemented a 48-hour rule in our house.
Love
So if
that.
there is, like, a little bit of a bigger item that they want, I say you have to sit on it for 48 hours. 2 days, you have to really think
Love it.
about it, and I would say 60% of the time in 2 days, they no longer want that. they no longer
Right.
want
Yeah.
that item or they've thought about it and realized, like, it's not worth the money, and I think
Right.
that lesson is so imperative for
Mhm.
teens to learn early because, to your point, their brains aren't necessarily completely developed to think long-term
Right.
consequences yet. So
Right.
if they think about the impact of, like, how do I really need that item because so much for them is impulse, instant
Yes.
gratification, right? And
Yeah.
so sit on it for a minute, and do you really still
Yeah.
want it a couple days later? Probably not.
Right.
So
Probably
aren't you
not.
glad you didn't spend
Yeah.
money on that now, you know? Um, so along those lines of mindset, how does early financial literacy impact generational wealth? And what do you think the ripple effect that you've seen in families when they commit to it?
Yeah, I mean, the ripple effect is huge. What I love about teaching kids about money early is that it's just like learning a second language when they're young. When kids learn, we know this, when kids learn a second language when they're really little, it's just second nature. It just becomes automatic. The same is true with money. So if we can teach them how to have good habits, how to make good choices when it comes to money, and that money isn't something to be afraid of, that long-term effect will carry them their entire lives, right? It's money is something we deal with every single day. And I actually recently saw a study that said that children's money habits are largely developed by age 7. And so we
Wow.
have a huge opportunity when they're young to kind of just make this second nature and easy for them.
Mhm. That's awesome. I love that. And for parents who didn't grow up with strong financial knowledge themselves, where do you think they should start?
Yeah. So what I love about that is that it gives your kids the opportunity. I think a lot of people shy away from that, from teaching
Mhm.
their kids if they don't know a whole lot about money because they're afraid of teaching them something incorrect or they want to have everything figured out. But the opportunity that's there is that you get to show your kids what it's like to grow and to learn as you go. And they start to understand that money isn't something that is a fixed skill. Being good with it isn't fixed. It's something you can grow at. It's something that you can learn how to do. You can make mistakes. So I recommend if parents don't know a whole lot about financial literacy, educate themselves and be honest with your kids when you're talking to them about budgeting. Be like, "Oh, okay, that's something that I'm learning too." And so
Mhm.
kind of bringing them along for the journey.
Yeah, I like that. What are some phrases or money mindsets parents should model or say more often at home?
Ooh, I love that. Okay, so kind of in the same vein,
Mhm.
seeing money as something that is you can grow in, that it's a skill you can learn. Um, I really like the phrase, we are going to be thankful for what we have and thoughtful about what we want. Because it
I love that.
teaches, yeah, so it just teaches like contentment with where we are right now. It's okay to
Mhm.
just enjoy what we have. And we're going to think and make a plan about what we want. And both of those things can coexist at the same time. And it just kind of rolls off the tongue
Mhm.
really easily. The other one that I love and I use a lot is every dollar has a plan. We're going to give every dollar a home in our budget. So when you get money,
Mhm.
whether be from your birthday or from allowance, we're going to put every single dollar in a home. And
Mhm.
even if you choose we're going to spend it, okay, we're going to think about that and make that choice ahead of time. And that's its home.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And I also encourage parents to just this is, coming from my background, um, little ears hear more than we realize that they hear,
Mhm.
right? And so if you are stressed out about money, you're going through
Yeah.
difficult financial times, I encourage parents to just be careful of
Mhm.
how they're expressing that or saying that out loud
Yeah.
if kids are around listening because I will never forget. I don't remember what my husband and I were talking about, but I remember laying with my daughter one night and she was probably, I don't know, like 10 or 11. And she seemed like upset about something. And I was like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And she looked at me and she was like, are we broke? I should laugh about it, but I'm sure I said something to a joke of
Yeah.
effect of like, I'm gonna go
Right?
broke if I do, you know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
meaningful. We weren't like arguing about money or anything. It's like, but she heard something out of context
Yeah.
and just was really worried about it. And so I think of that if my husband and I are ever talking about money or something. And and encourage parents, just watch what you're saying and be careful
Yeah.
because little ears can hear and they
Yes.
may hear out of context and, take that stress on too. So,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
so what has been the most meaningful success story you've seen from your work with families? Does one stand out?
Oh, yes. So I had a woman who reached out who said that I think she had 2 daughters, and she said that she was, similar to my story, just didn't know a whole lot about money, kinda grew up in huge scarcity, and so had a lot of fear
Mhm.
around money,
Mhm.
and she emailed me and just said that, like, working through this education with her kids helped her realize and helped her get her own kind of balance with money. And that's amazing to me
Mm.
is that it's not
Yeah.
just kids who are growing from this, it's parents too. They're learning that, this is financial literacy is actually quite simple. It's not
Mhm.
hard, but we put a lot of emotions behind it. We put a lot of meaning behind it, and it becomes really scary and really hard. And so for her to say, like, going through this with my kids has been so profound and impactful on me as a parent, not just on them,
Mhm.
was really cool. I love to hear that.
I love that, and I think, as parents do go through this with your kids, it kind of forces you because in my line of work, I see a lot of people avoid it, right? It's scary, and so we
Mhm.
just avoid the whole money thing, and we might check our balances, but we're not paying attention to where every
Right.
dollar is. Every dollar doesn't have a
Right.
home, right? We're not paying attention
Right.
to it more out of fear than, or lack of education about it, and I
Mhm.
see as I even educate clients on budgeting and tools that they can use, them realizing and creating this news story around, "Oh, this isn't so scary." So, I think
Right.
that's what a beautiful story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people find your programs, tools, and learn more about early bird education?
Yeah, best place is gonna be Instagram, honestly. So Samantha Bird Shiloh, and everything is linked there on Instagram. And I'm also earlybirdeducation .com. So yeah, that's where everything lives right now. Mhm.
Awesome. And what's one message you want every listener to walk away with today?
Yeah, I would say you don't need to be an expert to prepare your kids. You really don't.
Mhm.
Start where you are, start with the basics, and let your kids see you be imperfect, but continuing to grow and learn. Yeah, I would just say just don't shy away from it. Don't shy away from talking about money. It's better to talk about money and have it out in the open and in the light than to just keep it hidden and pretend like, they'll just figure it out. Yeah.
And you're doing them one of the greatest lessons that you can teach them, right? But you're
Yeah.
really setting them up for success and leaving a legacy. That's the
Yeah.
legacy you can leave them is just educating them about that. You don't necessarily have to leave them boatloads of money, but if you teach them how to
Sure.
handle their own, what a gift that you're
Yeah.
giving them. So, Samantha, thank you so much for joining us and sharing such powerful insights. I truly believe that
Absolutely.
helping the next generation understand money is one of the most powerful legacies we can leave behind. If this episode sparked ideas for how you can start money conversations in your home, take us on Instagram and share your biggest takeaway. You can follow Samantha and check out her resources at Samantha Bird Shiloh, Shiloh, on Instagram. We will also include her links in our show notes. And I highly recommend downloading one of her starter tools to get going right away. I talked to my kids this morning about starting your investor course this summer, and they're actually really,
Oh,
really excited about it. So
amazing.
many great resources. And remember, financial literacy doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to start. I'll see you next week with more money wisdom, mindset shifts, and power moves to help you grow your wealth on your terms.